there are some telltale signs that there may well be trafficking occurring at your property. And I won't get into a lot of the details, but there are things that you can look at that you should know or should be able to know if you are even doing the slightest bit of, let me see what's going on here, right?
Welcome to the Tip the Scales podcast, where we discuss running and growing your law firm. I'm your host, Maria Monroy, president and co-founder of LawRank. Today, I am joined by Dexter Benoit, and we talked about sex trafficking. That was the majority of the conversation. I had a lot of questions. Dexter Benoit.
Benoit, you got it.
So you're scared?
So it's my first ever podcast. Should I be scared?
Are you scared it's never going to air?
100% after what I just heard. Yes, I'm very scared.
What did you just hear? That I didn't air one episode once?
Yes, that's enough to make a first-timer like me very nervous.
I'm so sorry.
I want to perform well.
But out of 80 episodes, one hasn't been aired.
I don't want this to be two.
Your chances are pretty good.
There's always a chance, though. I don't want to be that person. Okay. I don't want to be number two.
What if I'm going to mess with you and be like, we're not airing it?
Oh my gosh, don't do that.
And then you're not going to know if I'm being honest or not.
When I leave here, I'm going to lose sleep over whether or not I performed well enough for this to be aired.
Well, I'm so sorry.
You're like a real podcaster. It's like a big deal.
Yeah. So we're going to make sure that out of all the podcasts we're recording this week, this is the last one that is aired. Just to keep you on your toes waiting, will it be aired or not? So
That would be traumatic for me. I wouldn't do that.
You think you're going to be fine?
I hope so. I'm going to do my best.
So you look super young, but I guess you're actually not that young.
Well, that's not a great way to start.
It's a great way to start.
I am not that young. I've been practicing for 20 years now.
I know. You look like a freaking baby.
I appreciate that. I try. Yeah, take care of myself.
See, this is going great. What are you talking? I'm complimenting you.
Perfect. This is great. We'll see how much makes it to the final edit, but it's good.
Yeah. So how long have you had your firm?
So I've been in North Carolina now about 14 years. I guess 2010, I started my own practice. I used to be in Chicago before that.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Joe Volta's going to be jealous that I'm interviewing someone else from Charlotte.
There you go.
Sorry, Joe. Do you know Joe?
I think I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
If it's the guy I'm thinking of, he's got a very popular Instagram.
It is, yeah.
Wildly informative. And I love North Carolina lawyers.
Yeah.
And he's much more, he does a lot more on social than I do. I need to do more.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you do good. Yeah.
This podcast might be the beginning of more for me.
Perfect.
There you go.
Joe's a good friend. He does a great job.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good lawyer, too.
I can't vouch for that.
I'll claim it.
Okay, cool. You would know better. Who am I to say who's a good lawyer and who isn't? So tell us a little bit about your firm.
Sure. So we have a single event practice. We do a lot of cars, truck accidents.
Okay. A
little bit of med mal. And we've been dipping our toe into sort of the mass torts stuff. We do some work with some human trafficking stuff.
Oh, that stuff makes me lose sleep at night.
It should. It's really bad. And there are, and North Carolina has a really bad history with human trafficking. There's a lot of problems.
Are these women being sex trafficked U.S. citizens?
The clients that we have represented thus far, yes.
Really?
Yes.
But how? I don't even want to ask how, because I don't want the universe to show me that answer. But is it a foster? Were they foster kids, or am I just making really big leaps?
We have seen scenarios where there are women who are U.S. citizens employed here, working, meet people, the wrong people. They end up at the wrong place at the wrong time. You can perhaps be drugged, and then you can be taken and moved from one place to another very quickly, lose contact with your family, moved around from hotel to motel to hotel, and disappear that quickly for 6-7 months without any sort of contact or communication. And we've had those types of cases, and it is as troubling as you would imagine, that you can be here one moment and then literally disappear the next. No contact with your employer. Thinking of a case in particular where you just don't show up for work the next day. No one knows where you are. And as it turns out, you've been gone for 6 months because you are being trafficked, oftentimes not very far from either where you live, somewhere in your hometown. And, those cases are tragic and sad. And I'm glad that our office is involved in, trying to get justice for these victims.
I'm in shock right now. And I have a daughter. So this shit's always even scarier when you're a parent.
It is. And we've got 2 boys, and
boys?
We have two boys, and I think to myself,
I thought you meant you had a case with two boys.
No.
But it
I've
probably
got
also
two kids.
happens
I'm a parent.
with...
Yeah, sure, absolutely. It doesn't matter. It's boys, young girls. Sometimes women that are, in their early 20s, not children. Oftentimes people tend to think that sex trafficking is limited to a certain demographic in particular.
But I'm past it, right? Like, I'm good.
100%.
Thank you. Like, there are some good things with getting old. So how are you generating these sex trafficking cases?
So I have had the good fortune of meeting some great lawyers at different conferences, like the one we are here for today, MTMP. I've met lawyers at other law firms that have these cases and that have wanted to partner with my office in North Carolina. And that's how we've been getting the majority of them. We do a little bit of advertising on our own. And we're always asking, clients that we represent if they know others. And unfortunately, in that world, what you tend to find are people that know other people that have gone through similar things. There are oftentimes different sorts of advocacy groups or, survivor meetings, these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And they are always saying, listen, I know what you've been through, and I know a law firm that may be able to help.
How do they escape these situations?
Situations are different every time. I'm thinking of one now where it can be something as simple as a trafficker forgets that a cell phone is somewhere where it shouldn't be and someone can call for help. It can be someone literally escaping from, whatever captive situation they are in and calling a friend or a family member. Oftentimes these women, they have their communication seized. They are oftentimes drugged and moved around quite a bit. And anytime that there is an opportunity for them to escape, to get away, oftentimes they take advantage of those opportunities. And
how many people are being held captive like this?
That's a great question. And the numbers are kind of all over the place. As you can imagine, it's difficult to sort of capture because the definition changes and it moves around a lot. People can be gone for a month, people can be gone for a week, but during that period of time, things can happen. And what I do know is that in North Carolina, the way our state is set up, we have some major highways that run both east and west and north and south. North Carolina is a very big state. Along the corridors there, like I-40 is one of our major highways. There are dozens and dozens of hotels, motels, all sorts of terrible sorts of spots where people can be moved from one place to the next. And what you see is, you've got these, if you've got big events, that are in town, you always hear about numbers going up. There was a statistic going around not that long ago when the Super Bowl was in town.
Yeah,
right?
I've heard that.
And figuring out exactly what those numbers look like is a difficult thing, but it is a problem that is not going away, that the internet has helped make a lot worse. These traffickers are able to communicate and do things now differently than they could before. And it makes it harder and harder, I think, for people that are being held and are being trafficked to get the help that they need. But when they have an opportunity to get away, then...
And you're suing the hotels, I assume.
We're suing the hotels. We sue the owners. The theory is if you are in charge of these properties, there are some telltale signs that there may well be trafficking occurring at your property. And I won't get into a lot of the details, but there are things that you can look at that you should know or should be able to know if you are even doing the slightest bit of, let me see what's going on here, right? A lot of random people in and out, right?
Right.
Out of the same room. You're seeing the same, perhaps young women that are there over a course of multiple days or whatever with a bunch of different people coming in and out. There are signs that hotel staff should know when they are cleaning the rooms. There are all sorts of things that are telltale signs that say, wait a second, you knew what was going on. And in fact, what we have found is that a lot of these owners from some of these smaller motels, they know, but they put their head in the sand and say, you know what? We're not interested. We're getting paid. The room is paid for, and that's fine. These are adults and they can do whatever it is they want. And they turn the other way. That doesn't work. And that's not an acceptable answer when you've got these sorts of things happening right under your nose.
What about Airbnb?
Well, that's a really great question. We have not had a matter with an Airbnb, but I would imagine
it's going to shift to that, though, because eventually, if you sue hotels enough, right? I guess the theory is hotels will actually start taking this shit seriously.
Hopefully.
And then it's going to have to shift to something else.
And Airbnb would make sense. And I guess the question would become, what do the owners, whoever is renting out the Airbnb, what do they know? When you're going back into that place, look, a lot of Airbnb folks, the way they keep up with their properties, if it's been wrecked, if there are things that are happening, if something is going on there. And the whole idea is that you don't get to put your head in the sand and say, meh, you know what? I got paid. I'm fine. That works for me. Right. And so if you can hold the hotel owners accountable, I don't know how it would look for an Airbnb case, but I'd like to believe that at the end of the day, we've got to eliminate this idea that people can do what they want to do in the confines of this hotel room or this Airbnb. As long as I get my money, it's perfectly fine.
Are these single event cases or are they mass tort cases?
They are both, actually. There are, and I know one of the law firms here, that's a big sponsor here, Levin Papatonio's office, they are working up large-scale litigation for, people that have been trafficked, and they are working on some multi-district litigation to get that going. We are handling single event stuff right now, but they may well all end up.
How does the mass tort thing work? Is it because if it's like they were all at a Hilton?
Yeah, and oftentimes what you'll see is there are a lot of smaller hotels that are, perhaps owner operated by a larger chain.
Got
right?
it.
Yeah, and so you're able to get a lot of these cases sort of under one umbrella, as it were.
And are a lot of PI lawyers taking these cases or not really?
I will tell you, in North Carolina, some of the litigation is really new. Some of the civil litigation that we are handling is new. The statutes, the way that they read, are really focused on attacking the problem from a criminal sort of side, holding people accountable criminally for allowing this. On the civil side, it's a little different. There have not been a lot of lawyers that have been championing these cases, which is why I'm really grateful that we have an opportunity in North Carolina to sort of be the ones to sort of push this forward, because no one's really doing it. And you're seeing cases.
Why do you think that they're not doing it?
It is an interesting place in litigation. I think everyone's trying to figure out what the footing looks like. Like, what are the actual civil remedies here? We all agree there needs to be something happening civilly so that these victims can get compensated for what they've been through. The question is, and I'll speak for North Carolina, the way the statutes are written, the way the statutes are interpreted, we live in a state where, we've got judges that, quite frankly, we don't think really understand the law. And so we're sort of at the forefront of trying to get folks to grasp what justice would look like based on the interpretation of this statute. I just don't think a lot of lawyers, if you've got a single event practice and you're doing auto accidents, you're doing truck accidents, it's a lot more simple. It's a lot more cut and dry than trying to figure out how this statute is written, the way it's written, and if we can use it to get justice for these people that have been hurt.
But now North Carolina lawyers can refer them to you.
They should.
Why?
I'll tell you what, I'm good at my job. I've got a great office. I've got great staff. We like the work that we do, and I'm really in a position where we can really help people. And I've sort of at the point in my career where, I listen to someone like Mike Papatonio talk about what is it that you want to do? What kind of change do you want to affect, right? And we have helped a lot of people with car accidents, with truck accidents, but I do think that there are larger things, more grand things to help people on a larger scale, which is one of the reasons I think this conference is so great, because the work that the lawyers here do affects massive change, right? Like, you can change the lives of thousands of people. You can affect legislative change. You can make change for generations with that type of work. And I think that, something like human trafficking that has been and is an awful thing that doesn't just impact the victim. Clearly it does. It impacts family, though. The ripple effects, right? They go on and on and on. And if you can make real change there, that's what I'm interested in. That's what I would like to do.
But it seems complicated because
Very.
Somebody comes to you and says, hey, this happened, right? How do you prove that it happened?
Takes a lot of work. You've got to go through. We spend a lot of time working with local law enforcement on a lot of our cases, right? So,
wow.
Yeah,
okay.
we spend a lot of time talking. In fact, we have really great relationships in North Carolina with, there are different task forces that are out there that specialize in human trafficking. And so we're able to talk to some of these folks, and they know, the people to talk to. They know the ones that, they're familiar with the victims. Oftentimes they're familiar with the friends of the victims, with the families. They've prosecuted traffickers if that's what it takes. And so we're able to talk to them. And that's really where we kind of start, we start seeing our cases, build up, and we're able to say, okay, we at least have a basis here. Someone has told us a story. We need to run it down, find out what's going on, and we can go from there. Find out where they were, how long they were gone. A lot of it is really fact intensive. We've got great private investigators that do a lot of work for us. So it's very fact intensive, a lot of story checking, a lot of running down, eyewitnesses, people that may be able to tell us things. And, it's good the media has taken up some of our cases, and they followed some of the stories, which has been great because when the media shines a light on things, sometimes it can help move things along.
This is crazy. It's so hard to believe. I think we all try to ignore that this happens to some extent because it's if this can happen in the States,
oh, sure.
It just doesn't even fit the idea. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, everyone thinks Liam Neeson in Taken, right? Everyone,
right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Everyone thinks, this is something in some seedy, weird part of Eastern Europe somewhere. Yeah. No, this is, this happens in the United States, every day. And
I always thought they were bringing in people.
Happens right here.
That's
happens
crazy.
Right here to U.S. citizens, right in their own hometowns. And yeah, it's scary, and it happens. And certainly you're right. It happens the other way too, right? There are people that are moved, young women perhaps that may be moved from parts unknown. But I think once people start to realize, the problem is even bigger than that, right? It's here in your backyard. It's here down the street from you, and you don't know it because it's not a focus, but it happens. And the goal is to root that out and say, hey, listen, you all know what's going on. We know you know what's going on. You can pretend you don't. You can turn a blind eye, but we'll hold you accountable, put you out of business.
So is that what you're really passionate about?
I like to talk. I've always been a trial lawyer. I've always been someone that likes to talk. Oh, thank you. But I like to talk. I did, mock trial in undergrad and did all that kind of stuff. Went to law school and did the one thing that I probably should not have done, which is go and join a big law firm right out of law school, and never got a chance to do those sorts of things. But while I was at this firm, which was a fine experience, and I met a lot of great people, but I did a lot of catastrophic injury defense work. Mm-hmm. I used to represent a manufacturer, the propane cylinders that you might have that you would hook up to a barbecue grill or something.
I have some of those.
They blow up from time to time.
Thanks. And can I get my phone? I need to text my husband.
They blow up from time to time. And so
wait, how often?
Depending on how you use it. If you use it safely, for the most part, you should be okay. And keep it outside. Don't put it indoors. All that kind of stuff. But we used to represent.
You have to drive with them, right?
You quickly get to your destination and get it outside. Don't store it in your car. But we used to represent a valve manufacturer. And when these things would blow up, our client would get sued along with the propane cylinder manufacturer, the propane supplier, all of these folks. But while I was doing that work, and I did that for the first 7 years of my career, I would see the disastrous sorts of impacts that these types of catastrophic injuries would cause, right? People would be injured, killed, severely maimed. And when I was in Chicago, I remember thinking to myself that this didn't really make me feel really good, right? Because I felt as though whatever talents, minimal though they may be, that I had, I didn't want to use doing this and representing these types of clients. And so when I moved to North Carolina, I made a decision that I was going to start my own practice and focus on the stuff that made me happy. And what really makes me happy is really, and it's cliche, and you've probably heard it, I really want and still want to help people. I started a practice. It's a small practice. I only take cases that I'm really, really into, that I'm really passionate about. And the sole focus is that I can give a lot of myself because, we're small and we don't take a ton of cases. But the ones that I do take are the ones where I feel people really need help. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what makes me happy. That's my sort of get up in the morning and say, okay, this works. I can get up and I can be tired. I can be stressed. But I've got a client that is severely injured. Like I said, we do a lot of truck accidents. We do a lot of really bad car accident stuff. I am able to say, I'm going to make a difference in this one person's life in this case, and bringing it full circle to the human trafficking. I feel as though if I can take that and expand it and do even more, I can help more people, which makes me happy.
If this isn't like a super common practice area right now in North Carolina, how did you get started?
At a conference, I met some lawyers here who
at
were
MTMP?
At a different conference, in the National Trial Lawyers Conference, probably 2 years ago, maybe 2022. I attended a panel just because I found the topic interesting, and I was unaware that this was even a thing. And I went up to one of the lawyers and said, while the presentation was going on, I was doing some research on my laptop and I was looking up human trafficking in North Carolina, and I was floored. I had no idea. And there are statistics. And I couldn't believe what I was reading. And I said, holy cow, I'm right here in Charlotte. We've got these major highways going by and there is human trafficking everywhere. And I literally went up to one of the lawyers and said, hey, I don't know anything about this space, but I am interested. And I don't know how I can help, but I'd like to try. And I ended up connecting with some folks and, been working on this stuff for the last probably 18 months now, almost 2 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But I think it goes to the things that you're interested in. And I would encourage a lot of people to do that, right? If you're interested in something, go out and figure it out and go where you feel as though you're being called to. And I felt like I was being called to do something a little bit more than what I was doing now, like we talked about. And it led me there. So
do you think that a lot of people don't follow what is calling them?
I don't want to speak for people. I don't know. I have a lot of friends who are in jobs or professions that, they do for a variety of reasons, not necessarily because they actually love it. Oftentimes it's money, or convenience. But for me, I feel as though I'm fortunate enough where I do get to do what I feel like I've been called to do. It took me a while to get here because I went the other route when I got out of law school. One of my big regrets is that I didn't open my own practice earlier, right away.
Didn't you learn a lot of at least from how to look at it from the defense side?
Absolutely. And it's a skill that I tell a lot of our new clients this. I say, if you're the person who wants the sunshine and roses and everyone's going to tell you that your case is awesome and you're going to, be a gazillionaire, I tell them, I'm not your guy. I'm not. I'm the person that is going to look at your case and tell you why it's not that great for this reason, and this reason, because that's exactly how the defense attorney is going to look at it. And if you're okay with that, we can work together, because I need them to appreciate the fact that I don't care what story you've told me. I don't care what's going to happen between now and the time we get to trial. Trust me, there's someone on the other side who gets paid a lot of money who is going to dissect your case. And I think it's beneficial if you hear this from me, not only now, but as we're going through the case. I will be your biggest advocate. But what I'm not going to do is allow you to go through your entire case without me telling you, we've got a problem here. We need to address it. We can't just pretend it doesn't exist, because if I don't talk about it with you, Mr. or Miss defense attorney on the other side absolutely will. And so let's talk about it now. And, my clients appreciate it. Even if at the beginning, they're a little flustered because they're like, well, why aren't you telling me my case is, worth $10 million? I said, well, maybe it is, but you've got problems and we need to address that.
Back to the sex trafficking for a second. How do they know to look for a lawyer?
They oftentimes don't. Like I said, we have, you can advertise. So in North Carolina, along the highways, you will start to see, there are certainly hotlines, right, where people can say, if you've been trafficked, there are on I-40, which is not too far from my house, there are literally hotlines that will say, hey, listen, if you've been the victim of trafficking, give us a call. There are support groups out here. And what you tend to see is that clients and former clients of ours will say, hey, you might want to talk to somebody about this. And a lot of the people that we have had an opportunity to meet have been from former clients or current clients of ours that say, listen, you might have a claim. You need to talk to somebody. So it's like I said, it's an emerging sort of field. I don't think a lot of young women, mostly, I don't think they know.
Some
I don't think they know.
airports have the little signs in the bathroom now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. If there are opportunities for you to either escape or to let people know that something is going on, I mean, as you see these, discrete numbers here and there, or whatever it is, you want to make it easy, or at least as easy as possible, for people to take advantage of those opportunities so that they can free themselves of whatever situation they're in.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you're at the forefront of helping victims in North Carolina. That's really cool.
We are trying. We certainly are.
Well, awesome. This was great.
Yay. How was it? First one? I did okay?
I don't even believe that it was your first one.
My first ever podcast.
Thank you so much to Dexter for everything he shared with us today. If you found this story valuable, please share it with someone you want to see succeed. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to help others discover the show.